Today, Bitcoin battles to hold $100,000 after the Fed's final rate decision of 2024. And SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce discusses the state of ongoing crypto enforcement actions under incoming leadership. As of noon Eastern, Bitcoin dropped nearly 3.5% to the $100,000 level, slightly rebounding from the $98,000 level earlier this morning. Ether dropped 6.5% to $3,600, and XRP by 5% to $2.34. Crypto markets in the red this morning as investors are digesting the Fed's signals for fewer rate cuts in 2025. Taking a look at how crypto-focused stocks are performing following yesterday's sell-off. As of noon, MicroStrategy fell by 1.7% and Mara Holdings by 3%. Meanwhile, Coinbase and Robinhood each rose less than 1%, while the S&P 500 index regained 0.5%. Okay, let's talk about today's top story before we get into the interview. Binance US says it plans to reintroduce US dollar services in early 2025. A blog post from its interim CEO Norman Reed yesterday reflected on the company's recent challenges and provided an outlook for the new year. In October of last year, the crypto exchange's US arm cut off direct dollar withdrawals and said that customers wishing to withdraw their dollars may convert to stablecoins or other digital assets first, and then withdraw. Reed says that the company was forced to pivot to crypto only shortly after the SEC's June 2023 lawsuit, which remains an ongoing legal battle. While no firm date was given for restoring US dollar services, Reed says the company plans for early 2025. This of course comes as the international business of Binance has also experienced shakeups since late last year, after its former CEO, Changpeng Zhao, pleaded guilty to federal charges and stepped down from the company as part of a $4.3 billion settlement. The company has since been led by Richard Tang. All right, let's head down to DC again for our main story. Crypto World's Tanea McKeel sat down with SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce at the Blockchain Association's annual policy summit earlier this week. Commissioner Peirce has publicly disagreed with the agency's regulation by enforcement approach to crypto, even once accusing it as paternalistic and lazy. Now leadership at the SEC is changing. Chair Gary Gensler announced that he would step down on Inauguration Day, and President-elect Trump tapped Paul Atkins to lead the agency under his administration. Tanea asked Peirce about her outlook for 2025 and her view on the Commission's role in crypto going forward.
Commissioner Peirce, thank you so much for joining me today. Almost new day, new commission. Is there anything in particular that you are excited to get done in 2025?
Well, thanks for having me, and it certainly is a new day that I think we can finally take the issue from a more proactive and productive stance than we have in the past, and we can get to work on developing some good, clear crypto regulations.
We have just talked so much in recent years about, the regulation by enforcement approach that the Commission has taken, under Chair Gensler's leadership. And so, I don't know that I would necessarily call it a clean slate or anything, but how would you describe the role of the Commission now? Like, now that you are going to have new leadership and people are very excited about, what they hope is a more supportive regulatory environment for crypto in 2025, what exactly does that look like to you, and what is it you would like, the Commission's role in crypto to look like going forward?
I think it's an opportunity for us to involve the public in figuring out what the right regulatory approach is. That's something that I've always wanted us to do. I think getting to a regulatory approach that works involves lots of great minds, some of which are at the Commission, some of which are not. And as you mentioned, we've been taking an enforcement-first approach, but we really need to get back to our roots as a regulatory agency with an enforcement arm. And that means that we work with our policy divisions on writing policy, and then enforcement comes in to enforce the rules once they're written and clear. But it really, that's what excites me about this, is the opportunity to show people that a regulator really can work for the people to build something that works really well for innovators, but also provides the protection to investors that we're charged with providing.
And, like I said, it's not exactly like we're completely starting over here. There's ongoing litigation. There are Wells notices floating around. I think just for the audience, for the crypto industry, and for new entrants to the crypto industry / market in this bull run, what does that sort of transformation look like as you have all of this leftover stuff with an eye on the future? What should we expect?
Yeah, I think you're asking the right question. It takes a while to right the ship. It takes a while to get to a better place, and we are an agency that we have our precedent from before that we have to live with, and we have to figure out how to move forward. So it's not necessarily a neat process. And I will say, again, it's a commission. We're getting a new chairman. He's going to come in with his ideas about how to approach this issue. And so we'll see how it all unfolds.
There's a lot of excitement in the market right now. Like I said before, just a lot of optimism about not just a more supportive regulatory environment, but I think, just a clearer regulatory environment. A lot of optimism. Is there anything you're concerned about?
I think that's a good question too, because we need people to be realists too, right? And so it's wonderful to see the optimism, and I think that's great. But there's a lot of hard work, and so building a good regulatory regime is not as easy as just ripping pages out of the rule book or typing pages up and slipping them in. You really have to work through what are the effects of the regulation going to be. And that means a lot of hard work from us, but also a lot of hard work from people on the outside. And it doesn't mean a free pass, right? There's going to be, you're still going to have to do the hard work of building a business. Even if you have a clear regulatory regime, you're going to have to do the hard work of proving yourself to the market. And if the market doesn't accept it, that you're not necessarily going to succeed. So there's still a lot of hard work, both on the regulatory side and on actually building things.
As you step into this new chapter, is there any way that you think it's different in the current environment, which is very positive, which is Bitcoin just hit 100K, and some people are saying it's going to double next year, versus, it was only 2 years ago that we were dealing with the fallout of FTX. Do you think that going through this transition at the SEC would be different in any way, for better or for worse, if we were in, say, a bear market versus what we're in now?
Yeah, I think that regardless of what the market is like, we have this mandate to write rules, or at least decide who the regulator is going to be for certain things. That's not only our mandate, that's Congress's mandate, that's the CFTC's mandate, but we have this mandate, and I think it doesn't depend on market conditions. I think that's part of our being not a merit regulator. We're just a regulator our job is just to set the conditions and let the markets play out. And so people need to be careful, of course, right? You can't expect markets always to go up no matter what you're buying. And you've been following this space for a long time, as we just talked about, and there are ups and downs. And so I think, again, I'm always encouraging people, no matter what you're buying, think carefully about what you're buying, and that message won't change.
Yeah, and just to go a little further on that, what is your view of the market currently? It is so much more mature than it was just a few years ago, just last year. I think a lot of that had to do with the introduction of ETFs and more institutional interest in crypto. But I've heard a lot of excitement around that fact that this bull run is more serious, more mature, and then of course there is a faction of people who are maybe rightly worried that we're getting to 2021 levels of froth, and there are going to be new entrants that come in who maybe get hurt. But just on the maturity aspect, how much does that play into your view of the bull run this year versus the last one?
I think what I'm optimistic about is that if we have a framework within which people can feel comfortable experimenting in the United States, we'll have a lot of really interesting experimentation, and people will try new things. There are people I've talked to who said they wanted to build something, but they were worried there could be a securities implication and they didn't know how to get an answer, yes or no. And now I hope they'll be able to get those answers, so I hope they'll be able to move forward. So I think we could see some really interesting innovation. But again, people always have to be conscious that if they're putting their money into something, they have to think about whether they can lose it, whether they can afford to lose it. They have to think about the fact that markets don't always go up, they can go up and down. So it's also an opportunity for us to do good investor education and remind people of that.
On the ETFs I just mentioned, so we've got Bitcoin ETFs, ETH ETFs, and there's a lot of murmur in the market about what the next one is going to be. Is it going to be XRP? Is it going to be Solana? And then there are a bunch of institutions that are just not interested in the next single coin ETF at all. Trying to say this question in the right way here, but how do you view the idea of the next single coin ETF? Because Bitcoin and Ether are quite established as sort of the blue chip coins of crypto, and I imagine it's not as easy to go down the line to the of the riskier assets. So how do you guys view your approach to the next single coin ETF?
It's a facts and circumstances question. I think what we need to do is apply our precedent. People can come in with the facts of the products, and we'll take a look at them and go from there.
Do you see another one coming in 2025?
It's hard for me to predict. Again, I know there's been some interest in some already, but each application really has to be judged on its merits.
What about ETH ETF staking?
That's something that people have talked to me about, and certainly a question that I'm open to looking at. I think it's a really interesting issue, and one of the things that we see is that people iterate, right? You start with a product and then someone says, okay, can we add in this feature? And we look at that, and so you don't have to stay static forever. The SEC is really set up to have people come in and try iterative developments of different products.
So for crypto, your top 3 priorities for next year?
Well, top 3, first is moving off a regulation by enforcement approach and really focusing our policy resources at the SEC on figuring out solutions. That means carving out stuff that can be carved out where we can say that's not ours to work on, working collaboratively with other agencies like the CFTC, and then providing a route for people to come in and experiment, as I mentioned, so through no action letters, really opening up the door for people to come in and have those conversations, serious conversations that are intended to produce actual experiments that can be commercialized. And then third, I would say just putting some real meat on the bones of come in and register, so that it's not just an empty sign on the door, but it's actually something that works.
Okay, that's all for Crypto World today. We'll be back again tomorrow, and we'll see you then.